Hey grade 7s, today we continue on with adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So today's questions are a little tougher than the ones that we worked on last time, and we're going to go through some examples together, but the rules are essentially the same. So we'll see what's going on here. In our first pair of fractions, we've got 3 and 5/8, and we're adding 1 and 2/3. Just like always, I need to make my denominators common. I need to have the same bottom numbers before I can add these things together. So what could I make these things both out of? Well, 8 and 3 both go into 24, so I'm going to make both these fractions out of 24. My whole number remains the same. It's my bottom number. That will be 24 for each of these. To make this one out of 24, I had to multiply top and bottom by 3. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom of this one by 3. It's going to be 15 out of 24. To make this one out of 24, I had to multiply top and bottom by 8. So this one is going to be 16 out of 24. And now I can add them together. I can first add together my whole numbers. 3 plus 1 makes a big 4. And now I can add together my numerators, my top of the fractions. 15 plus 16, that's going to give me 31. So I now have 4 whole and 31 out of 24. I'm left with an improper fraction here, so I'm going to take a whole number out of it. I'm going to take a 24 out of 24. That's how much I'm going to take out of here and put it into a new whole. So because I'm taking it out of there, I get a big 5 now because I have another whole. And I have to ask myself, 31 take away 24. So I might on the side decide to go 31 take away 24 and see how much that leaves me with. So that will of course leave me with 7. So I have 5 and 7 out of 24. I should double check to make sure that this is in lowest terms. This one is in lowest terms, so this answer is good to go. 5 whole and 7 out of 24 is the answer. For our next one here, once again I gotta make the denominators the same, gotta have a common denominator. So this time I can change just this one to being out of 40. So I'll keep this one as it is, 2 whole and 3 out of 40. And I'm going to add to it, the 1 whole remains the same, and then I'm going to double the top and bottom. I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 2 to make it so that this one is now out of 40. 19 times 2 would give me 38. Now that the denominators are the same, now that we have the same bottom numbers, I'm able to add them together. I like to do my whole numbers first, so 2 plus 1 gives me a big 3. 3 plus 38 gives me 41. So I have 3 whole and 41 out of 40. Once again, because 40 out of 40 would be a new whole, you can see I have to take a whole out of here again. So now I've got 4 whole and 1 out of 40. Because 41 take away 40 leaves me with 1 left. So I got 4 whole and 1 out of 40 left over afterwards. Our last one here on the bottom of the page is I've got 1.5 plus 7 out of 14. In this case, I could actually make this one a lot easier. Rather than making this one go up to 14, I think I could divide top and bottom of this one by 7. And that would mean I'd have 1.5 plus a half again. And that's a much easier problem to solve. I've got 1 whole over here, I've got none over there. So I've got 1 whole, and then I've got a half plus a half, so that's going to be 2 out of 2. Of course, 2 out of 2 is a new whole, so the whole thing is equal to a big 2. And there we have our answers for these 3 questions. Let's move on to subtracting some mixed numbers next. Subtracting is always a little bit more difficult than the adding, but still something that we can tackle for sure. So our first one here, we got 2 whole and 7/10, take away 1 and 3/5. I gotta have a common denominator first before I do anything else. Let's make this one out of 10. So I've got 2 and 7 out of 10, and I'm going to subtract 1 and 6 out of 10. Now that leaves me with the ability to now do this subtraction. Because I'm subtracting them, I'm going to always check my fractions and make sure they subtract first before I subtract the whole numbers. And the reason being, I need to make sure that I don't need to borrow anything from the whole number before I can subtract it. In this case, 7/10 take away 6/10. I can do this without borrowing anything from the whole number. So 7 take away 6, that's going to give me 1 out of 10. And 2 take away 1, that gives me 1. 1 whole and 1/10 is already lowest terms, so we're good to go. Now we've got 3 whole and 1/9, take away 2 whole and 4/5. So again, I need to find a common denominator, a bottom number that I can use for both of them. So I'm going to make these both out of 45. Multiply top and bottom of this one by 5. That gives me 5 out of 45. Multiply top and bottom of this one by 9. So that one is going to give me 36 out of 45. And this is why I check to make sure I can subtract my fractions first. In this case, can I do 5 take away 36? Well, not without borrowing. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cross off that 3. It's now a 2. And I can add 45 out of 45. Because that's what a whole is, I can add 45 out of 45 to this top. So 45 plus 5 means I now have 50 out of 45. So now I can do 2 whole and 50 out of 45, take away 2 whole and 36 out of 45. I do the fractions first, so 50 take away 36, that's going to leave me with 14. And now I can't forget my whole numbers. 2 take away 2 leaves me with 0. I don't need to write anything here. I could write a 0, I suppose, if I want to, but it could also just be blank because the fraction is already there. 14 out of 45. That one is already in lowest terms, and so there's nothing that I need to do to it any further. It is good the way it is. Then we've got one more over here. So now we got 5 3/8, take away 15 out of 24. Let's again give them a common denominator. This time I'm going to change just this one. I can multiply top and bottom of this one by 3. That would make it a 24. So let's do that. Obviously, I wouldn't want to multiply top and bottom of this one by 24 and top and bottom of this one by 8. That would make these fractions far too large. So it's far better to realize that by going up by multiples of 8, I can multiply this one by 3 and multiply the top by 3, and that gives me a fraction that's out of 24. And it's much easier to work with. So because I was multiplying by 3, the top is now 9, because 3 times 3 is 9, and I've got 5 whole and 9 out of 24. On the other side, I'm going to be subtracting 15 out of 24. Once again, I am not able to subtract this without borrowing. So I'm going to borrow from this 5. It becomes a 4 whole instead. And I can add 24 out of 24 is a whole in this case. So I can add 24 to the top. So 24 plus 9 will give me 33. I have 33 out of 24, and I'm going to be subtracting 15 out of 24. Once again, I do the fractions first, so I can think to myself, 33 take away 15. If I know the answer off the top of my head, that's great. I can write it down right away that it is 18. If I need to do it off on the side, that's okay too. 33 take away 15 leaves you with 18. Either way, you got your answer. The denominator is still 24, so that's good too. And now that leaves us with 4 whole take away nothing over here. So there's still 4 whole then, because 4 take away 0 leaves me with 4. Now this is not lowest terms yet. I can divide top and bottom of this one by 6 to make it into something else. So let's divide it by 6. So the 4 whole remains the same. 6 can go into 18 3 times, and 6 can go into 24 4 times. So I'm left with 4 3/4 as my final answer then, and that one is in lowest terms.